everybody, again. Thank you. Welcome back to our Brooklyn Cyclones podcast type series, I guess we're going to call this, as we're highlighting some of our former players who have made their impact here in Brooklyn. And today we're going to welcome back Dante Brinkley, who was an all-star for us back in 2004. Had one of the best offensive seasons anybody's ever put together here. So, Dante, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time and catching up a little bit back here in Brooklyn.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I'm looking forward to where the podcast is going to go.
So I guess just to get started, tell us a little bit about what you remember about your experience here in Brooklyn and some things that, it's been almost 20 years at this point, which is crazy to say, but some things you remember about your time here and your favorite takeaways.
I would say my takeaways from Brooklyn was the kind of the build up. It's preached in spring training how dynamic and how exciting to play in Brooklyn is, and playing there lived up to every compliment and every sentiment that anyone's ever said about the location and organization. I would say my most memorable. Well, I had a few memorable.
We got time, man. Go through all of them. We got time.
I have a few memorable situations I would call that happened at Brooklyn. I would say, but one of the biggest one, I think it was. I can't remember exactly who we were playing, but it was to clinch a playoff berth, and I think we were sold out, so it was like 5,000 people. It was like a night game. I think it was on like NU sports, the sports channel, and I think we were down a couple runs, and I came up and hit like this huge home run to like put us up, and the place just went bananas. Like it was like, I don't even know where fireworks came from because I didn't think that was part of that night festivities, but fireworks, all the fans were going crazy. They were throwing things in the stands to each other, like blow up balloons, and everyone was just going crazy. And it was like, it's like it never had happened before as far as like clinching, but because we were very successful in Brooklyn, so we were making the playoffs and clinching divisions, year after year in. But the way the fans just made that one clinching just so special, like it was the first one ever in the organization. And that's what the energy that the fans bring in Brooklyn that makes it so dynamic and makes you want to play harder and makes you want to do everything you can to put that excitement in the crowd and to the fans and their support, because they pour so much love into the team that you just want to do something to show how much love you have for them back. And I would say that was one of the most memorable times there for me that I even think about to this day.
That's awesome to hear that, here we are in 2022 and, you're still reminiscing about the good old days and then remembering your time in Brooklyn. That makes us feel great. And I'm sure our fans will feel the same way. I remember being here in the beginning of the season and there was you and Ambiorix Concepcion were our two like corner outfield guys. And I remember watching like the first day of infield and guys were hitting balls into the corners and you like had like a rifle for an arm that you threw into second base, and then Ambiorix was in right field and did the same thing, and it literally had like a flame trail coming out of it, like NBA Jam or something.
Yeah.
What do you remember about some of the other guys you played with on that team that year?
Man, we had a really good mix of guys. We had a good group of college players, what we call like in minor league senior players, because most players come out early in college, but we had a lot of senior signs, myself included. Then we had a couple of our international players, like in Buick, who were signed on early, so they kind of worked their way up to the organization. And then we had what we call bonus babies, high rounders that year, like Corey Coles and some of the other guys. And I would say on that team, the camaraderie was really strong. Like we spent a lot of time together. We always was together. We always talked about winning and how far we can take the team. And the talent on that team was, man, it was like just unmatched. I mean, like you said, Mbure was, one of the, I don't know, most athletic guys next to Gomez that I played with, but everyone else wasn't really too far behind. But it's just some of the things that he would do. I remember where it was one of the games and we were up, and I think they had like first and second, and time run was on like second, and like you said, it was a ball just like in warm-ups, infield, outfield. Ball hit down the right field line, kind of like one or two hop the fence, and he got to it in like the second hop, and I don't even think he even took a crow hop. And for fans that don't know what that is, it's kind of like a momentum jump or bunny hop towards the location that you're going to be throwing the ball to. And he literally just picked the ball up, fielding it to his left, and did a spin move, and then just rifled it one hopper to the plate. And for people that don't know, right field is a haul from home plate and threw the guy out by like 2-3 steps. And it wasn't like there was like a catcher running or anything. And no offense to catchers, but it wasn't like there was a slow, mediocre runner. Like there was a pretty good runner, and the ball was hit pretty hard, so the runner didn't have to read, if it was going to be caught or not. And from there forward, I was just like, you know what? I need to start working on my arm strength. So me and Corey Coles, we would play long toss like every day just to see if we can try to match that arm. But some of the talent on that team, we had Kevin Rios, our infielders, Grant Pasomas, Aaron Hathaway. I mean, like the list goes on, and then we're not even talking about our pitching staff. Gabby Hernandez and Petit. Like some of these guys are. We really had a really good team, but I would say out of all that talent, everyone worked hard, and I think that's why we were so successful our time there.
Yeah, I remember that throw exactly you're talking about. I think it ended up on Sports Center, and it was like one of the most ridiculous things. Short season baseball team. We're on. It was like number 3 on Sports Center, but it was worth. That's what it was. It was one of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen in baseball for sure.
And he just, nonchalantly just kind of walked back, his slow glide walk back to his position, like he didn't just do that. And I'm just looking from left field, like, did that happen? As I'm walking, because I was covering, backing up third base, as I'm walking back to or jogging back to my, like, did that just happen?
Yeah, that was one of the things where like you tell that story again, and it's become like folklore. Like this guy was like a superhero with the arm that he had. But it's like that's what it was. I'm glad somebody else relays the story the same way.
Yeah.
So that year, I also remember with Tony Tiarina, who was the manager. He was one of like the best guys you'll ever meet, like in the history of the world. He was sort of thrown on the team as the manager at the very end of spring training, I think, for some other reasons and stuff that went on down in Florida. But he came here back this season because he's a scout for the Royals. So we got to see him this year, and it was great to see him. But, what do you remember about your time with TJ?
Man, TJ was the best. That coaching staff was one of the best coaching staff I had been a part with TJ. And then you mentioned Donovan Mitchell. He was, I hate to throw this phrase around because I don't really like it because I feel like most coaches are. He was a player's manager. He really cared about the players individually, collectively. You could go to him with anything, baseball, development, personal issues, financial issues, anything that you could confide in him, and he would shoot it to you straight, what you need to do. He was a no nonsense, but very likable, funny guy that, he was about accountability. As long as you were held accountable and you did what you're supposed to do and what you're responsible for, he had no issues. So for me, it was, I always thrive in those situations because I always thrive myself on taking care of what I can take care of. And to have that, I like to say, relieve that pressure because you knew what you were getting. It made it easy to go play baseball. It made it easy to show up to the field early for early work because he was there. He didn't, if you needed to hit at 10 a.m. and it's an 8 o'clock game, he's there. Same thing with Donovan Mitchell. I mean, that coaching staff was awesome. And I just remember taking BP off TJ. Please don't hate me, TJ, for saying this. But TJ BP was terrible. He threw, and what I mean by that, not that he couldn't throw or he didn't throw strikes, but he threw so fast from such a short distance, and he took it personal as the BP thrower. So what I mean by that, as you're taking BP and you start to get in the groove, start hitting the ball around the park anywhere you want, line drive, right field line, left center gap, over the fence, he starts throwing curveballs and sliders and changeups because he didn't want anyone to hit him that way, right? And it's kind of confusing initially until you get to know TJ. It's like, wait a minute, batting practice is for me to get in the groove so I can be ready for the game. but his philosophy was competing, and that's what he did. Even starting in BP, he competed. So yeah, it's BP, but I'm gonna make you work for it. And I
Trying
would
to sell
say
you
that
off in batting practice.
exactly, and I would say that to say that to say this, it did get you ready for the game. So ultimately, once I realized that, I was ready for BP. So when I got into the game, it's like I already had 3 at bats before I even had my very first one. So I would say that's probably the best. And he was a jokester too. He always would play like jokes on people on the field and stuff like that. Bubble gum on the hat. Stuff like that. So
Baseball
I
stuff.
was he made it fun. He made it not a job. He made it where you wanted to show up to the field because even though it's a short season, it feels like a long season because just from all the emotion and excitement and the travel and the thought of tradition. Like when you're in Brooklyn, you're expected to win. Like that's just what it is. Like there's no second fiddle there. Like you're expected to win and expected to show up and play every day. So, he made it easy and I always would appreciate him for that. Him and Donovan and the rest of the staff. Like it was awesome.
Yeah, I always TJ was one of the like that. You meet some people in baseball and that are just like special, and he was one of those guys. Like he came back here, like I said last season, 2021, he came in. He's walking through the office and he's dropping people's names, people he hasn't seen in 17 years. He's dropping people's names, knowing everybody. He was a special guy. And another guy you mentioned, Donovan Mitchell, who are still involved in the Mets organization, and he was here for a few years. He was another special guy. And from your year when you were here, I particularly remember another Donovan Mitchell Jr., who was running around his office a lot and has
Yes.
now gone on to had a little bit of a success on his own here
Yeah,
in
just a little bit,
Philadelphia.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was like the bat boy from time to time. We have some pictures of him shagging fly balls and playing at first, and he's this little tiny dude. And then a few years later, all of a sudden, you turn on the TV, he's winning dunk contests. So, what do you
Yeah,
remember
it's
about little Mitch being around here?
yeah, it's remarkable. Like you said, I remember it started off in spring training, right? Like down in Port St. Lucie, and he's running around, antagonizing people, throwing balls at you, running in the cage, and then he's also hitting balls and playing catch with his dad. So to see that, which is a beautiful thing, right? To see a father and son building that bond and spending time with each other. And you can tell he was just a joyful kid. And you see the same thing with him now on the basketball court. He's just joyful. He just loves what he's doing. He plays hard and he wants to win, but he's having fun at the same time. And I don't know, I just never thought that he would be a basketball player, right? Because dad plays baseball and he's at the field. Like I said, he started in spring training, then transitioned over to Brooklyn in the season. He's there, running around, in the clubhouse, and on the field with us if we're playing games, two ball, and he's there. And to just turn around and it's like I remember because I didn't really follow college basketball as much, and I just remember I think it was like the dunk or whatever, and I remember just turning on ESPN or something and I just see like this kid from Louisville just like dunking on this guy like baseline, boom, just like man, that kid looks familiar. But I didn't really put two to two together until like I really like start following, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's little Donovan. And he's like this huge basketball star, and I just transitioned over to the NBA, and it's like this is awesome. Like I'm so proud for him, his family, mom, sister, dad, and it's just great to see that the same skills and intangibles and tangible things that you learn in baseball is transferable to sports and even in real life. I still use skills and things I've learned in baseball in my everyday life, and I think that's why I fell in love and love baseball to this day because the things that you learn, the relationships that you build, and the opportunities that it creates, it's like none other. And I've always been thankful for that.
So you talk about relationships a little bit. Who are some of the guys that you're still in touch with that from your playing days?
I still talk to everybody. Facebook, Twitter, and all these social media outlets. It gives you an opportunity to stay in touch and do some of my work events. And when I actually was coaching baseball, I would travel around the country. So you still keep in touch with guys, even guys that play on other teams. Like, it's just check-ins. Like, Kevin Rios will just hit me up out of the blue, like, man, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. It's like, I'm in town. I'm like, all right, well, say less. I'm there, right? Like Corey Coles, we still talk, Stu, like Watts, I one day randomly I was living in Chicago, and Watts hadn't talked to Watts in like decade. Like people didn't even know where Watts was, right? There I'm
I've
like,
been trying to find him.
exactly, right? Where's Waldo? And
Yeah.
he just randomly hit me up one day. Like I had text, the number that I had and no response. And then he just randomly hit me up like, dude, I'm in Chicago. Come to Wrigley to the game because one of his buddies' brother was a pitcher on the Cubs. And we literally hung out all night. Like, it's to the point, like, I didn't even go home. Like, we were out all night. I texted my wife, like, hey, I don't think I'm going to make it. And we just reconnected, took tons of photos. And it was just like, we had never missed a beat. And I would say that's why I think our team did so well, because of those situations. It'd be guys that you hadn't talked to in a while. Same thing with Aaron Hathaway. I was one of his references for his job. You reach out like, hey, can you be a character witness? Of course. Of course I could be a character. You're a good dude. Like, we're good. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to think about, Wilson Batista. Talk to him. Yeah, a lot of guys, talk to him Buicks every once in a while. Trying to think, like Grant Posonas, I talk to him. It's like my brother from another mother. I like to call it Gabby Hernandez. We talk, so like I keep, I can name the whole
Yeah,
roster,
I
right?
know. I know.
And I still,
That doesn't surprise me though. I mean, you were like the mayor of that team, man. You were like
yeah, that is
the
right.
guy in
He
the
did
middle that
call me
knew
the
everybody.
mayor.
So
You're right. So like, I was still talking, and I've always stayed, in a big city or very close to a big city. So, the guys are kind of plucked around the country, but we always come back to seeing each other and hanging out.
so you talked about all these relationships you have with guys. Like, how difficult was it for you? A few years after you left Brooklyn, when you get traded to another organization and having to
Honestly,
start over from scratch.
it was really tough. It wasn't tough as far as starting over, like playing for another organization, because it was one of the organizations that we would play against, in spring training. So, and then even in the Florida State League. So, like, I knew the guys, and I was fortunate to go over with a couple guys from the team, like Gabby Hernandez and Grant Pasomas. And then we also had like a couple guys that were in the Met organization from a free agent standpoint that had signed over there. So from that standpoint, it was fine. I think from a organizational operational standpoint, it was such a big difference, and that definitely took a toll and took a time to try to reacclimate myself, or simulate. I would probably use a better word, simulate to their culture. And no shots at any organization, but it's just different. When it's a difference when you walk into spring training with the Mets, and there's Mookie Wilson, there's Brett Butler, Darryl Strawberry, Lenny Dykstra, Mickey Brantley, Mickey Tam. I could go on and on of all these Hall of Famers and people that I grew up watching. They're your coaches. They're your instructional coach. They're your rovering coaches. They're your team coaches. And then, like I said, there's no knock to anyone else. It's just that prestige. Tuffle, Tim Tuffle. Like, again, I can Howard Johns. I can go on and on naming all these coaches. And then you following up with a Donovan Mitchell and a TJ, it was just different. Like they didn't have to say what the organization was. They walked it, right? They would be out there catching fly balls and taking batting practice with you, showing you. So they're not just preaching it, they're doing it. And so I would say you had a onus to yourself. You had a prestige. You had I'm following these footsteps, so I have to be better. And I think going over there is, you really got what business in baseball was. Like, it was truly about business, and winning was kind of just a byproduct of business. If you won, it's great. If not, it wasn't a big deal. But that has nothing to say with some of the relationships I built over there and some of the coaches over there, because some of the coaches over there were really great. It just, from a totalitarian, from a organizational standpoint, it was just different, right? And I know most people say, well, they weren't some World Series. Yeah, they did, but business wise, if you look at it, those teams were dismantled, and most of the players on those teams were young players that really hadn't hit arbitration or hadn't hit that eligibility for a contract, and then those guys were shipped out to keep that payroll lower. The Dontrell Willis, Miguel Cabreras. It can go on of the
Yeah,
players
that
that went on
Cabrera guy
to,
turned out pretty good.
yeah, turn out to be okay guy, right? Can hit a little bit,
Yeah.
and there's no knock. It's business. I'm okay with business models and different things that I understand that now, in my professional career or professional life. But as a person that grows up wanting to be a professional baseball player, and you're taught to be about team and win and compete and take care of your brother, it's really hard to understand business in that concept, right? Like it don't seem like they fit. Feel like apples and oranges, but that's the way the organization was ran from top down, and so everything was fill the form system, accumulate as much talent as possible. So when the players that are on the verge of hitting those contracts, then now we got to get them out of there and get some farm, and then we'll keep restocking the farm system, which made it very competitive. So I can definitely say it was competitive. We had a lot of talent, but for me, I was kind of an outsider because I wasn't homegrown, and so a lot of opportunities went to individuals that were homegrown or individuals that were perceived to be a high stock asset that was acquired from a previous trade, even though I was, traded for a big leaguer as well. But that's just how the organization, was ran. So a guy like me that was a senior sign 23rd rounder, I was more labeled that than the actual player that I was. And that's the part that I appreciate about the Mets. They still had aspects of that, but at the end of the day, if you can play, you can play. And they always play the best. And over there, that wasn't necessarily always the case. So for me, it burnt me out a lot faster from baseball. So leaving, because they say what you don't miss what you don't know, or you don't know what you don't know. But in that case, I knew what I knew, and it wasn't the same. And so trying to figure out how to manipulate that or work through that took a toll on me mentally and emotionally. Um, and it hurt my game. I'm not afraid to say it. It hurt my game because I wasn't able to play the way that I play or the best way for me to play. And I didn't really understand it. Like it took me a while to really understand it because it's like, hey, I'm a great player. Like I play hard. I play for the team. I sacrifice. I bunt. I move runners over. I dive. I run into walls. And my numbers are still great, but it just wasn't that style of play that was kind of, I would say, projected through the organization because those metrics don't receive praise. And we know over the Mets they do, right? You get incentives for how many guys you take, how many double plays you break up, because those things aren't hits, So anyway, I can go on and on about that all day, but it was definitely a difference. And yeah, and I still appreciate all my experiences and all my opportunities, but I would say that was the difference, the culture. The culture was different.
So your time with the Marlins comes to an end, and you're done with baseball, and you move on to the next chapter of life. So what have you been up to lately? What have you been
Man, I've
doing
been
since
living
baseball's
life.
been done?
I'm happily married, beautiful wife, two kids. I have a son, Elijah, who's 9. I have a daughter, Layla, who's 5. And they take up most of my time. So when I retired from the Marlins, I enrolled back into school, finished my degree at Northwestern University, obtained a full-time job in education administration, then transitioned over to research administration. My wife's also in research administration. So I've been working basically applying and managing grant funding at universities for researchers. I've been doing that for a little bit over 12 years now. So when I was done, I enrolled in Northwestern and started working and then got engaged all within 3 days of me getting home. So I got home like on a Friday. I started school. I started work on Monday, started school on Tuesday, and I think I had proposed to my wife on like that Sunday. So like it was like boom. And then so during that time I
You're
worked.
always a big triples guy, I think.
Yeah,
You're always
yeah,
a big
yeah. I
triples
gotta
guy.
hit a triple, right? I can't singles. What? So I worked full time and went to school full time. I worked all day, 8 hours a day, then went to school at night. Finished my degree. During that time, just traveled, and then I started coaching travel baseball, the top tier baseball academy out of Chicago, because I was still kind of loaning for baseball. Like even though I had retired, I had made that decision. I still kind of wanted to be part of the game, and I was kind of battling if I wanted to be a coach or anything because those opportunities were available. At the professional level as well as at my alma mater, Missouri State. But I really had a bad taste in my mouth just from the things that transpired at the tail end of my career. That I didn't know if I wanted to be in baseball. I kind of wanted to be. I wanted to make it. The competitive edge came back out again. Like I'm gonna make it without baseball, even though like it's a love, right? So I start coaching, start giving back to the game, giving back to players that were inspired to be professional athletes themselves, and giving them that what we call the blue book, right? That information that you can't obtain for a person that hasn't been in those situations. And I know, there's somebody that's watching this and be like, yeah, but you can look it up on YouTube and anyone can do it. Yeah, you're right. Anyone can technically look up someone YouTube, but it's the emotional and the education of that experience from that player that you don't get. It's the little things that you don't get, and those what pushes you over because when you make it to professional baseball, everyone can play, everyone can throw, everyone can run, everyone can hit. It's what separates you from the pack, and that's the little information that a person like myself or anybody that's played the game will have that information, and some have more than others because and I felt like I was a steward of the game, student of the game, so I have a little bit more insight, so I was trying to pass that along to other players and really to players that truly wanted it. And what I mean by that, I think the day and age is a lot different than what I came up with. I came up with the Andre Dawsons and the Ryan Sandbergs, where it's a little bit different. And today is more about showcasing and different things. So I would kind of teach the players like, hey, don't be, we call them 5 o'clock hitters, but I'm gonna call you, don't be a showcase kid. Yeah, you can run the 60 and take infield outfield, but what are you gonna do when it's the fifth inning? Guy on first base, you're down 3 runs and the pitcher's at his pitch limit. Are you going to take pitches and get that pitcher out of the game so you can get somebody else in to help the team? Or are you going to try to get a base hit and then possibly, so it's hard to talk to those things. And so I did that for a couple years. And then I had my son, and then I kind of tailored off. And then I started a sports recreational company out of Chicago, City by the Lake Sports or DBA, CBL Sports, where we focused on intramural sports. We started off with flag football for the professionals because, like I said, I was still missing that urge. And for people that don't know, I was a football player, cornerback, wide receiver, DB, and I was really good. But when you see how big those pulling guards and fullbacks are in college, you decide that baseball is what's for me. But I always loved football, so got kind of introduced to it in Chicago, and then connected with a couple of friends, and we ended up putting a company together, which was one of the single biggest flag football companies in Chicago. We had like over 50 teams each season, and to this day, it's still going on, but it's under a different organizational name. And these players come down to nationals in Florida and win. They have all girl teams, co-ed, and the crazy part about it is they're all like ex professional players that play. Like, the Bears, ex Bears players had a team. Like it's WNBA players, like it's ex MLB players and minor league players. Like, and it's like people like, if you don't know them, you don't know them. And you're just like, wow, how can she move like that? Well, she was a D1 All American track runner in the 100. So that's why she's outrunning most of the guys, So it kind of gave them a way to be back in kind of that sports or athletic community and still be competitive and still be in a safe space where they can, not get hurt. Well, there's some injuries, but you know what I mean, maliciously hurt by playing with people that don't understand that these individuals still have to go to work on Monday. So we kind of built that program and then end up moving. Wife got an opportunity down in Florida, end up moving down to Florida and now I work at University of Notre Dame doing research contracts, negotiations with federal and industry and non-sponsored awards. And I work 100% remote, and that's what I do. So I work during the day, spend time with my family, run around like my mom used to run me around at sporting events. I do that with my son and daughter. They're really into soccer, so I'm at the soccer field, being that parent from a far distance, sitting way down the
Right.
line.
You're not coaching. You're
Well, they
yelling.
keep trying to get me to, and I'm just like, well, it kind of depends on the type of coaches that you would allow. The ones that I see, I don't think I fit in that mold, so I think it's best for me to sit down the far line, so that way I can say my little sentiments underneath my breath, and just be out of the way and really just enjoy my kids playing. Like that's like the biggest thing for me. Occasionally, I might play like some softball, or I know a couple buddies been trying to get me to play in like this ex pro baseball travel baseball league, but I really haven't picked up a baseball in well, I'm sorry, that's not true. I hit occasionally, like off the tee and just messing around, but haven't like played baseball in a while. Every once in a while, well, when my school, Missouri State, has their alumni game, I'll go back and play. I think the last time we played, I was like 2 for 3 and stole home. So as you can see,
Stop it. That's it. Hands free. 2 for 3 to steal home. That's a wrap. I'm
so
never
as you
coming
can
back.
see, like for me, it's just how I am. Like if I'm playing, I'm gonna play to win, no matter what the occasion is, fundraiser for charity, whatever. I'm gonna play hard, but respectfully, because I feel like I've got good sportsmanship and a good team player, but I want to win.
That seems to be the running sentiment with guys when they're done playing baseball. They don't miss necessarily the
Yeah,
between the line stuff. They miss the juice, the competitive juice you get. You miss the bonding with your buddies.
yeah,
So you're still finding ways to fill that void. So that's great.
yeah.
So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time for joining us. And we miss you here in Brooklyn. Anytime you want to come back and bring the kids and show them the old stomping grounds, we'll happy to have you. And thank you again for taking the time. And
Thank
best of luck with
you,
everything
thank
going
you. I
forward.
appreciate it.